Next discussion is Ken, GPS.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This project, or this program, I should say, is something I'm familiar with from my previous employment, and it's a thought that I had to bring here to Sunset Beach. I did not include it in the agenda, or I'm sorry, not the agenda, but the budgeting for FY19, and I'll explain that here in a little bit why I did not. But I guess where do you want me to start? Since this was put on the agenda by council, what exactly are we looking for other than
the cost and the benefits for having this in the cars for you?
Okay.
Microphone.
Okay.
The cost and the benefit of having it.
Okay. The benefit of having it is several. One, in order to remain transparent, this is something that we could use, a tool that we could use if a resident or a business owner said, we never see a police officer in such and such an area. We could go back to the GPS and it could show us a live replay of where our vehicles were in the last 30 days or better. The GPS would work as, when you view it on the screen, it shows a satellite view of the town, and you can replay based on the vehicle that you're looking for, the time frame that you're looking for. It will show you the patrol pattern of the vehicle. It will show you the speeds of the vehicle. It will show you the stationary times of the vehicle. If the vehicle is powered off, it's not going to show anything. So there's two quotes in here, and I'll explain the differences between those quotes. One would allow tracking of the vehicle while the vehicle is shut down because it's powered through the computer. The other is powered through the vehicles, and I'm not familiar with what that's called, but where you plug in to get the diagnostics from the vehicle. One would plug into that. Another benefit of GPS is similar to the WatchGuard camera system that we have if we have a complaint on an officer. If we have a complaint that someone says they saw a vehicle at 3 p.m. last Friday driving 75 miles an hour down Sunset Boulevard or 100 miles an hour over the bridge, we could pull the GPS from that time frame, see if there was in fact a police vehicle traveling in an excess speed around the time frame that the complaint came in. If we have an entry to a residence, an entry to a business, or any type of crime where we want to see if maybe our WatchGuard camera system caught a vehicle or a person in an area, so 2 or 3 days later we get a complaint that a person noticed their house was broken into over the weekend while they were away, we can come back, look at the GPS to see if a patrol car had driven in that area around the time frame that we believe the crime may have occurred. We can then go back to the video, which does record 24 hours a day while the vehicle is in motion. I shouldn't say 24 hours a day, but it records while the vehicle is in motion. And we can go back and try to review the video to see if maybe it caught something that the officer didn't realize was a crime at the time. So perhaps a vehicle traveling in that area that matches a description of what someone told us might have been there. So that's some of the benefits that it can have. Answer a lot of questions for our taxpayers to want to know, what we're doing, where we were at, and that would just be one extra tool that would help us do that. The two quotes that were included in the package, 4.1.a, the first quote from Track Tick. This is the equipment that would plug into the diagnostic port in the vehicle. And this would only be operational when the vehicle is powered on. When the vehicle is powered off, it's safe to assume that the vehicle is stationary and it's not moving. This company also offers diagnostic tracking, so we can watch fuel efficiency. They can track brake wear, which I don't believe is a benefit, because as much as we're driving the cars, as much as we stay on top of our service, we don't need to pay for another service to tell us when our oil is due, when our brakes are due. We don't have that large of a fleet that we need to worry about a software telling us it's time for an oil change. we're asking to track 15 vehicles. But this would give us everything that I mentioned. We would be able to come back and basically live play the patrol pattern of any vehicle that you want to see. And when I say you, since this is taxpayer money, this is something that any citizen could say, I'd like to know if there was a patrol car on my street last night between 11 p.m. and 12 a.m. And we'd be able to pull that video, or not the video rather, but our GPS, and show whether or not there was a patrol car in the area. The second quote, which is more of a local vendor from North Carolina, and I've been talking with them for a little while. They offer GPS tracking that does essentially the same thing, but the difference in this one is there's a USB plug, which is a GPS antenna that would be plugged into our mobile computers in the vehicle. So as long as the computer is on and the GPS has a signal, it's going to track. So if an officer stops and the vehicle is here while they're doing paperwork, but the computer is on, it's going to show when we later play back that the vehicle was in a stationary position and how long it was in that stationary position. Pricing, as you can see there, for the first quote, for 15 units, which again, this is assuming that the request in my FY19 for additional patrol vehicles is approved. They are $499 per month for that many vehicles, with a one-time training and implementation fee of $499. So we're looking at $5,988 a year, plus the one-time fee of $499, which brings a grand total for TrackTick for $6,487. The second quote from TrackStar, which again is based out of Charlotte, shows a total price of $5,225, which this includes licensing, a system starter edition, and the USB GPS antennas at $110 a piece. Installation is done by us unless we pay additionally to have that done. Should be relatively easy to do, especially with the USB version. The reason that this was not included in my FY19 budget is I have intentions for the FY20 budget to ask the council to approve a new RMS system, our records management software. The Brunswick County Sheriff's Office is currently working with a software company called Zerker to transition from the software program that we all use now into a more user-friendly software which can be shared by multiple agencies. What we would do with Zerker, if the council would approve, would be to remotely access the sheriff's server where we could be part of the Zerker software, and we would be able to share information upon that single platform. This is something we did at my agency in Ohio, where we remoted into the sheriff's software. We did that, the city police, multiple other smaller agencies, as well as the sheriff, and we're able to share data such as people that we're involved with, vehicles, property, businesses. And when you think about Sunset Beach and our proximity to Ocean Isle, to Calabash, people come to Sunset Beach, criminals come to Sunset Beach from other areas. And it would be nice to know that if we have, or if the sheriff's office finds a person that is sneaking around a storage unit at 2 in the morning last weekend, and they stop them and ID that person and send him on his way, and then we find that person in Sunset Beach sneaking around a closed business around the same time, we'd be able to see that just 3-4 days ago, the sheriff's office had that same person doing a similar activity. Currently, we're not able to do that. The only records that we can see are with Sunset Beach.
What's the cost of that, Ken?
The cost of that, roughly $75,000.
How much?
$75,000.
And that comes preloaded with GPS?
That comes preloaded with GPS. So this software, Zerker, like I said, to transition, to do training, to put it in all of our mobiles, which is our mobile data terminals, for our desktop computers that we have in the building, training, all the modules that we need, the data conversion, so all the master files that we have now for name, for business, for vehicles, for property, to transfer all of that in, that comes at that price tag. And that's not something that the sheriff's office is going to have, I believe, until later in 2019. It's going to take some time for them to implement that. It's not something that we would be able to jump on board with right away. And like I said, it would be something I'd like to propose for fiscal year 20. And that would give us that component. I think that that's the best way to serve our residents. It's the best way to do business, because we will be able to see other people's involvements, other people's cautions, which a caution could mean that a person is known to carry a knife. A person is known to fight with the police. And if the sheriff's office, Ocean Isle, Shallotte, any of those agencies currently put those cautions in their system, only their officers can see it. And I think there's great value for the protection of our officers to know what's going on with the people around us in other agencies. And like I said, that would have all of that integrated in there. Also, that gives the availability of the Brunswick County 911 Center to send call screens to the officers as they're dispatched to something. Currently, the way that our officers are dispatched to a call is they press a button, they talk to us on the radio, they say, go here, do that. With this, they would be able to send a screen to our vehicle that would tell us where we're going, why we're going there, and the history at that residence. So if we know that that person has a dangerous animal on the property, it's going to be in the call screen, so that we'll know that before we get there. It's going to give us some history on the address that we're going to. So, but again, that's down the
Do you
road.
recommend to hold off on GPS until this system gets voted on by the?
I would, because I don't feel that it's a wise use of taxpayer money at this time, because we're going to pay for it now. We're going to pay for it monthly, and it's an investment. It's a tool that the officers are going to have to learn how to use. And then if we approve to merge the software systems with the other agencies, we're going to be starting over from zero again. And again, implementing a new system, teaching the officers how to use it, and again, spending taxpayer money.
Okay. Fine. John?
Just to be clear, this is not something you want this year.
That's correct.
You're the chief.
I'm sorry?
You're the chief.
Chief, the $75,000, is that a startup cost, or is would that be the cost per year?
That's just the startup cost. So then we would have an annual support and maintenance fee, and I don't know what that is, but significantly less.
What? Yeah, you got great tools at your disposal now. Way different than the 70s
Absolutely.
and 80s.
Chief, I have a vision, and I just want to make sure my vision is compatible with your vision. I'm looking at a system that will protect our taxpayers from overly aggressive police officers and protect our police officers from overly aggressive taxpayers. I envision this system that would be totally transparent, so that it'll hopefully minimize complaints and also protect both parties. I see a system that has both audio and video.
We have that now, don't we, Chief?
We do.
I see a system that will also have a GPS system, so that we know where our vehicles are and where our police are.
For sure.
I have said this on numerous occasions, that public officials or public employees sometimes have a marketing problem, particularly our police. We don't have a Dunkin' Donuts in Sunset Beach, and this is not being critical. But we've had complaints over the years and recently about two vehicles being at a particular restaurant for lengthy periods of time. And to be quite frank, I still get those complaints. And I've had those observations. And I know that we rationalize and sometimes say, well, people have a right to eat. Well, that's fine. But if you're on duty, you're on duty. And I'll be very honest with you, I have driven the streets of Sunset Beach all hours of the night. 2, 3, 4, 5, 1 o'clock in the morning. It's very difficult to find a police vehicle. So it's not a criticism. It's just that in some ways we are a small rural beach town. We don't want to be bigger than we need to be, and it has to be balanced. And so I just throw this out, not for any fixes, but just generally some of the complaints that I have received over the years. I don't know if they're complaints or not, but there's perceptions that we have to somehow address. And so I'm hoping that this system that you have connecting in your cells will resolve a lot of these perceptions.
Well, I have a great deal of experience with that, and technology is wonderful for just that. And I've driven the streets of Sunset Beach at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning as well. And yes, I'll agree. I mean, if I'm on Sunset Boulevard or if I'm on Main Street on the island, depending upon where I'm at, I haven't seen a police officer. But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean they're not in Sandpiper, or they're not in Cape Side, or they're not somewhere in Sea Trail. Just because you don't
Yeah.
see them when
No,
you
no, I
traverse
understand
the
that.
main
No, I
streets.
understand.
But what technology can do for us in that instance is when somebody says, hey, I was driving Sunset Boulevard last night at 3 in the morning, and from Seaside all the way to the island, I didn't see a police officer. So I can ask them, what time were you there? And I can pull the GPS and find out where they're at and say, well, this is why you didn't see them, because while you were traveling down Sunset Boulevard, they were back here on Dogwood looking for
So can make it clear, it's not available in 2019. You won't be able to implement this into 2020.
Even if we budgeted to implement that now for the new software, until the sheriff's office is online and running with it, we can't tap into that system. And since they've already signed the contract, to the best of my knowledge, I don't want to speak for them, but I believe that they're full speed ahead with this software company. Until they are up and running, we have nothing to tap into.
Okay.
So my recommendation to the council would be is not to spend the money now, because it is coming. It will come to you in the next budget cycle. And that will include, you know, the GPS and all the answers to the questions that you have here as far as accountability, where your vehicles are at. We'd be able to answer those questions.
Any other questions?
I just have one question. All the complaints and concerns that you hear, Rich, do you pass those on to the chief, this chief or the former chief?
I have.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
And the chief has been addressing those in the appropriate fashion.
Excellent.
Any other questions?
Just one other question. Chief, during my career, I was responsible for security at MIT for a short period of time, thankfully. And it became a requirement because I had so many student complaints that we had to send our police force to charm school.
To what?
Charm school.
Charm school. Okay.
How to be nice
Sure.
and respectful. Do you see that as a need in your force?
I don't know that, I guess I'll start by saying it can't hurt in any field to teach people how to better interact with other human beings. But I haven't had those kind of complaints since I've been here to say, you know, we may have a problem, a
Okay.
communication
No,
problem.
no, I'm just,
But like I
Think it
mentioned,
aloud.
I don't think that, you know, I'm in favor of any training that we can do to better serve.
all right, thank you.
Thank you. No other
Thank you,
questions?
Ken.
All right, thank you.
Have a good day now. Barham, this is you. This is, I'm sorry, real quick, personnel policy paid to, for interim assignments.
Yes, I guess about a month ago, Councilman Serrato had initially brought this up and sent us a rough draft, and Lisa and I got together and tweaked it a little bit. And looking beside me at Grady here, it appears he's got several comments and notes to discuss. So we're bringing this for y'all as a potential policy amendment to the personnel policy, basically to handle whenever my position taking over a whole other job, or Richard's position over there when he's taking over acting chief duties, to give a fair compensation for the extra responsibility being added onto them for the temporary interim that they are assigned to that position. So, I think y'all had a chance to look over this, and Grady probably wants to start off by talking first, since he's already made so many notes.
I have gone through the draft. I have revisions I would make, and I would point out certain things that I would want to address in a formal revision. I guess we could do that. You put this on the agenda for the next meeting as
June
a sort of
4th.
formal document to adopt. And my changes are more aesthetic geared, but also for clarification and establishing benchmarks. The first word I circled was formally. What you need to define, is that just by an acknowledgement by town council at a town meeting that there's someone that's going to be formally offered an interim position of advancement? I don't know, I see the word, it needs some definition, or it needs some context of what formally means. And then as you go down, and these are notes, these are just revisions I put in there, to perform additional duties as part of a job classification other than or in addition to that of the employee's regular classification, shall, and I would then delete normally, shall receive an increase for the duration of the interim assignment based on the following guidelines. The first guideline, I would then number this as the employee shall receive a salary adjustment to the minimum level of the job in which the employee is acting, or an increase of 10 to 30%. To me, 10 to 30% is a range that is pretty big. And I don't know that you should have that sort of range. I don't know that you've got two competing standards here, to the minimum level or to an increase of 10 to 30%. I think you need to contemplate, is there a way that we can clean that up to make it a little more simplistic and straightforward as a minimum threshold that would be allowed, and then a maximum based upon a number of factors that could go into it, not the least of which would be how can we quantify how much more of an increase in the job responsibilities and the duties is that employee going to actually take on, or is it going to be more of a ceremonial title change? Those would kind of be things that I would contemplate would go into your adjustment. Under subparagraph A, what I would add after the difference is difference and or enlargement of duties and responsibilities between the employee's existing job with that of the job position being filled on a temporary basis. I can give this all to Hiram and to Lisa. And maybe that's what I should do. There's really nothing at this point, going back to the second paragraph, the employee's salary shall return to his or her salary they were receiving immediately prior to the interim assignment, taking into consideration blah, blah, blah. I'm not really sure what the purpose of the last sentence is on this draft. I put a question mark by it. And someone can maybe enlighten me on what that's supposed to address.
What is that last sentence there?
It came from the original draft.
Okay.
That must be Mr. Serrato's statement.
Which one is that?
The
Greg?
very last statement, the town administrator should inform the council in the event there are specific circumstances that may violate this policy. Don't quite understand that.
Well, I think it was just a catch-all to have council awareness. the concern that I have is that this policy be fair and consistent to avoid any perception of favoritism. Each temporary assignment or interim assignment or interim into another job classification, it shouldn't be, I mean, it shouldn't be subjective. And I just want to capture it so that people understand what the policy is, that there isn't any debate or whether they should get 10%, 15%, 30%, 25%, that it has to be rational, fair, and consistent.
You're trying to reduce subjectivity and replace it with as much objectivity as we can have, correct?
But it has to work in the real world, if you understand what I'm saying.
Right, you need some flexibility in
Yeah,
there, depending upon the
exactly.
circumstances. Okay.
Exactly. Thank you, Grady.
I have no problem taking a stab if Lisa or Hiram can send me.
that's fine.
Can send me the electronic edition so that I can go into the body of the document and redline it for the town council's consideration and yours.
I have a comment.
Go ahead, John.
I agree with, I see nothing wrong with your comments. Maybe in the first sentence formally be changed to something like officially to show that, you know, there's a process to do this. The 10 to 30% is the part that bothered me most. One, I agree with you on the range. How do we make it more specific? The other is also who sets that point. Is it the town administrator who sets it for personnel subordinate to the town administrator, and the council that sets it for the administrator, or is there some other arrangement to do that?
And if I can real quick, don't get hung up on the range. It was there as a placeholder, 10% to 30%, or if y'all anywhere in between. So this is draft. So
Do you think it should be just one flat standard fee, or that enough object specificity could be put in there to clarify why one would get 10, one would get 20, or one would get 30?
the reason I would put it in there is it's hard to objectify this because we're in a unique situation here. Y'all, or the idea, in my opinion, was this should address everybody in every situation. The situation the town finds itself in now is I'm taking on the responsibilities that's not related to my position. So my increase was substantially larger than, say, someone who would get like a 10% or something like that, because it's within their progression of their responsibilities and the amount of work involved. So that's why a range was thought about at first. But we left both options in here up to the minimum of the next job performed, or a range of 10, you know, it's 10 to 30, but that could be 10, 15, 20. It was meant to be like, it should be probably in brackets, but it's meant to encompass, are they taking over a separate job? Are they taking over something that's already in their job? It's just the next level up. And whether we need separate policies for that, this is just trying to be a catch-all.
I prefer to have the 10 to 20%.
What I'm saying though is that there's no way for us to quantify that because it's a case by case. And to answer your question, that initially started that was the way this is written, it could be either or. The town administrator setting that for much lower level people, or the council setting it for the town administrator.
I have a comment.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Thank you, Hiram. We've had 3 of these cases this year, Hiram, Lisa, and Richard, and we've discussed it in closed session. And I think we easily came to a decision of what was fair. And then we came into the regular schedule meeting and voted on that. And I leaving the range to 10 to 30 would be all right. We discussed it reasonably and intelligently and came to decisions without much problem.
Also, Hiram, I think that should be a town council decision.
That's why this is a draft. You know,
Okay.
But I also want to point out that the hiring and firing and the personnel decisions are still through the personnel policy laid out to the town administrator. So you'd be taking an exception at this point, which I'm fine with, I'm just letting you know. You'd be taking an exception for this specific instance from everything else established in the personnel
Hopefully this
policy.
doesn't happen again anytime soon.
I hope not too, but what I'm saying though is, it wouldn't be consistent with the rest of the policy. But that can also be written into it. That's not the issue. It just need to be written into this, that this is and then why it's an exception.
So what we're gonna do now is Grady's come back to you with his rough draft, and then we'll look at it again on June 4th, Lisa.
We'll know at the next, I'd say at the next workshop. This won't be ready to be adopted at the next meeting.
What's the next meeting? That's, the workshop is June 19th, that's fine. Grady, does that give you enough time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Rich, you're the next personal policy amendment, hiring processes, procedures rather. Rich? Workshop, number 3.
That issue's about what, the fire vacancies?
No,
We don't know.
you never really were clear about what it was about.
You've listed this before, and it was either about hiring department heads, or it was about hiring firefighters, or it was about both. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, we've discussed this for the past 5 months.
and now we're trying to get something formally in writing, because you have to change the personnel policy in order to enact what you want to do.
I will change the personnel policy and send you a copy.
Well,
My
That-
concern
is that the council's?
I'll tell you what my concern is. We're changing a policy, and I'm not sure if we have to even change the policy. This is a temporary measure. We have 17 firemen. I still haven't received an answer why we have more firemen than any other town. And I'm just asking that before any vacancies, if there's a vacancy in the fire department, I just want that vacancy to be discussed, and before filling that vacancy or advertising for that vacancy, that it be approved by the council.
We'll write that up that way, Rich, and then we'll have a vote on it.
I have a motion, but we can't vote at a workshop.
Right.
And
Well-
my motion says this, and help me out.
Well,
I would like, this is not a motion, folks. This is just, I put together a motion that would have said, I would like to file a motion
You need to talk
temporary-
into the microphone, Mr. Serrato.
I am. I'm doing the best I can,
There you
Grady.
go. There you go.
I would like to file a motion to temporarily modify the personnel policy in order not to fill any fire department vacancies unless they are first approved by the council. Now, I don't know if we have to modify the personnel policy for this.
Well, the procedure right now is up to the department head to hire people, not the town council, Rich, so it is a policy
It's not
change.
about hiring people. It's about authorizing to fill a vacancy.
I don't see the difference in that, Rich.
Well, to me, there's a difference.
if I may real quick, the budget that you set at the beginning of the year sets for the number of staff positions essentially
It
through the
has
salaries.
17 fire staff positions.
Right,
That
so-
doesn't make it that we have to spend it.
But that is the actual authorization for those positions.
I understand that.
And my question on this, though, is why selectively the fire department? Why not every department?
Because the issue that we have is in the fire department. The
But-
issue that I'm raising is in the fire department.
But it's basically discriminatory against them. You've approved
It's not
everyone.
discriminatory.
You've approved everyone else's budget at
It
a
is
certain
not
level,
discriminatory.
and then specifically
We've got
your.
more
your-
Rich, let him
Let Hiram
finish.
finish.
Charlie, I'm running the meeting.
You've set the budget for every other department based on the positions classified in there. And then specifically target the fire department by saying, we have to come before you and ask if we can fill an opening that we have, if they have an opening, is selectively targeting the fire department, and it is discriminatory. We have our roll cart guy, had to quit recently. We're having to re-advertise for that position. Do I need to have that authorized?
You have a role?
Yeah, the guy pulls back the trash cans, Public Works.
What's that got to do with the fire department?
It's not, it's about being fair across the board is what I'm trying to explain to you.
One size doesn't fit all.
If
Both Mr. Benton and I voted against hiring 3 firemen. The
But-
fire department asked for 6, And being government, it compromised to 3 so we can keep everybody happy. To be frank, Mr. Benton and I weren't happy, and we're looking for justification why we have more firemen than even Calabash.
But Rich, I agree with what you're saying, but how we control that is by our budget.
Mr. Richardson, could you make any suggestions for a little guy like me?
I'm just a little guy too. I see both sides. I mean, I think what you're hearing, Hiram is saying, you've got a budget that allows for 17 firefighters. You're expressing concern about if there's attrition in the fire department ranks where one or more firefighters decide to resign or find another job before there is a decision made to fill that. Say it went from 17 down to 16. You're saying, can we have kind of a temporary or an interim gap filler that says before there's a decision unilaterally made by either Hiram, Lisa, or Mr. Childress on hiring a new 17th firefighter, that council be consulted about it? And then Mr. Benton is saying, well, another way of effectively taking care of any more firefighters being hired is if we reduce the fiscal budget for the fire department as to what would be allotted for salaries. So all three of you are saying variations of the decision ultimately is it can be a combination of amending the budget for the fire department. It can be having some sort of resolution or a mandate that's issued to the fire department as well as your town administrator, that if there's any attrition in the ranks of the fire department and losing employees, that before that void is filled, that town council first have an opportunity to deliberate on it. But in doing that, I believe you would need to have, if it's going to be some sort of a permanent thing, you're going to need to adopt amendments to the personnel policy that basically carves out an exception. And you would need to, I keep hearing how this fire department has more firefighters, but you need to have some basis for which you would be treating the fire department differently than other departments of the town that have staff in them and employees of the town, where you're not putting that sort of control on us. You need to justify your concerns. Just saying that Sunset Beach has more firefighters than the town of Calabash, to me, doesn't get it. Ask the questions as to why that is. Ask Mr. Childress, talk to Mr. Childress and his staff and his department and find out, because I'm guessing there's two sides to a story. You're going to hear directly from the fire department why that is the case and why they feel it needs to continue to be the case.
The issue is only temporary, and I believe the council does have the legal authority to authorize hiring, other than just separately from the budget. I mean, if this council is locked in because we made a budget that included 17 firemen, and that is now cast in concrete, and the council therefore has no flexibility in upcoming months to make any changes, I find that, quite frankly, absurd.
There are multiple facets of what this discussion is about. What I am saying is, if council is wishing to place a freeze on any further hiring by the fire department, I believe you could probably do that.
Yes, we can.
But if it's going to, I'm sorry.
As a council.
Right. But if it's going to be something that's beyond a temporary freeze and you're looking to have a long-term, hey, fire department has to go through not only any hiring decisions of new firefighters, not only does that decision have to be approved by the chief and town administrator, it's also got to be a decision that is fully approved by a majority of town council vote. That needs to be placed as an amendment to the personnel policy, because that's a long-term decision. It's beyond a freeze on hiring. It now moves into if Mr. Childress loses 3 firefighters today, the freeze says he can't hire anybody else. That's a temporary measure. If he needs to hire someone, he would want to go and get another fire department employee. And you're saying that that would now be taken from the town administrator's role to approve it and would then need to be placed on an agenda or a special meeting for the full council to vote on whether or not to approve Mr. Childress' department hiring 1, 2, or 3 new fire department employees. Do you see the difference? There's a difference. There's temporary and there's long-term. And I think you need to have a basis for which you're doing this with the fire department as opposed to the police department.
Yeah, I'd like to move with this, real quick, John, I'll let you talk after this. But, Richard, I'd like you to have an opportunity on the June 4th meeting to address these issues, because right now I'm going to put you on the spot, to address these issues to Mr. Serrato on why you need 17 and make your case, because I don't think you've never had that opportunity. I don't know if you talk privately with him, but I'd like to, for you to address that to the whole council on June 4th. Lisa, could you add that, please? So, okay, Rich? John, go ahead.
That's fine, but I just point out, we're doing it again. When we got the fire fee increase, the fire chief came and asked for 6 more firemen. That's where we came up with 3 firemen. The council approved the 3 firemen based on the justification that was provided by the police department of why they needed 3 firemen. When we went through our budget hearings, Deputy Chief Childress came and made his presentation as to why he needs 17 people, and he explains the staffing issues, the safety issues, the insurance issues, all of which come into being as to why we have 17 people on here. Mr. Serrato has not been happy with the fact that the fire department increased in size. He stated continuously that he doesn't understand why we need to have such a big fire department, even though the fire chief and then the deputy fire chief has answered those questions and explained it. So now we're asking the deputy fire chief to come forward again to answer the same questions to the same person about the same issue. We have gone through, and when we did our budget hearings, we had a consensus to approve 17 people on that staff. We had that vote. Well, we had the consensus, put it this way. We haven't adopted the budget yet. And yet, Mr. Serrato continues to beat on this same drum that he doesn't like a fire department as big, as well-trained, as well-prepared, and equipped, and taking care of us. That's the message that I hear.
No, that's not the
That's
message.
the message.
That's your political.
That's the message that I hear with you constantly badgering the police department about this same issue.
No, John, that's personal attacks. I won't accept that.
And none of his were?
No. I gabbled him too. Real quick, on June 4th, we'll have that discussion.
I have
Richard,
a
please, let's
comment.
put it to bed this time.
have
Richard,
a
he's going to
comment.
address the issue to you, and this is the last time we're going to talk about this issue. It's the budget.
I
Charlie?
have a comment.
Charlie?
Again, here we go. This was put on the agenda where there was no background or discussion information provided by Mr. Serrato. And if we had known prior to this, we wouldn't be putting it off till June 4th. Richard could have come up and answered our questions and concerns, and we'd been done with this.
Well, I have an answer for that, Charlie. Charlie, Hyman and I have been discussing this matter. We put things on the agenda from now on. We're going to make a motion that you have to tell, if you say Jings Creek, you have to tell us what's it about. Not just a generic name or generic sentence. You have to be exactly precise on what you're going to discuss on that day. So these issues do not arise again, Charlie, okay?
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Yes. Mr. Corbett's insinuation is political. My background is business. My background is justification. And I'm attempting to get justification why this town, and I haven't received an answer yet.
You will on June 4th, Rich.
Mr. Benton, to include your question, when the council discovered that the fire chief and the assistant fire chief don't go to fires.
Well, Rich, right now, I am not going to go down that road right now. The assistant fire chief's going to address you on June 4th and answer these questions. I'm not going to the past anymore. Next item. Discussion concerning workplace safety. Mr. Grady.
Mr. Benton and council, the memo in question is the one that Ms. Parker did dated October 19, 2017. And speaking with staff, actually Mr. Marziano, looking at this memo, don't have any issue with it, except as maybe to number 3. And as I understand it, from the boots on the ground day to day here at Town Hall, number 3 is not being just applied to 2 or 1 or 3 select individuals. It's being applied to everyone, but it doesn't read that way. And I believe that the memorandum should be kept in place. I believe that it should be amended to recite that anyone or everyone seeking to go into secured areas or be granted face-to-face meeting with staff members be accompanied or be escorted for that purpose. That's what in fact has been happening, as I understand it, since this memo.
That's not true, Grady. I mean,
Well, okay.
now that the place
I'm
has
just
come down a little bit, we don't have to be escorted into the facilities. I guess if Lisa or Harmon had a problem with someone, they would ask them to be
We've never
walked
been
in.
escorted.
Yeah, but everybody is escorted through the lock. No one goes to the key code doors without someone coming to get them and showing them through. But that applies to everybody, is how we've been treating it.
And, I don't see the harm in amending the memorandum and leaving the memorandum in place and amending 3 to recite what's been in effect taken place. According to what Hiram just said, of everybody has to be allowed through the key gate access into staff areas.
I would also like to remove paragraph number 3 after the incident October 17th.
But that's a factual.
I'd like to remove that, though.
But this is that memo. We can't go back and alter a memo. If we.
And the policy.
Yeah, but what's the policy change there? I mean, this is the event that caused Susan to start this procedures in the first place. Because she did receive complaints, and you need to.
Well,
respond
Susan's
to
not
that.
here right now, so I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I don't agree with that paragraph at all. Maybe someone else might, but I don't.
I don't need.
Mr. Mayor, can I?
Yes.
I think we're skirting the issue. And I've thought about this, and I'm going to read a statement, because I feel like I'm being a political target, and it seems to continue, for speaking up. As you know, the town administration, without any prior knowledge or approval from the town council, issued an increase in our security measures. This included installing a camera system, along with restricting elected official and members of the public who, in the opinion of the town administration, have demonstrated a potential for violence and would not be allowed in the secure areas or be granted face-to-face meetings with the staff members. That is in the security clearance, in the security memo. To be clear, I and others have continued to have face-to-face discussions with our staff. The security alert dated October 19th indicated after the incident on October 17th, 2017, the town administrator received 2 formal complaints from staff stating they feared for their safety. These formal complaints and various concerns raised during the past 12 months related to conduct from public office officials, not citizens, public office officials, in both open and closed session as the reason for the alert. My efforts, along with others of the council, to have these workplace violence allegations communicated to the council without identifying any employee were in vain. Although I was previously assured by former Mayor Forster that my outburst with council candidate Charlie Nern, when he accused 3 council members of eliminating the farmers market for simply voting to increase the rental park fees, was not the reason for the alert. He failed to tell me about the episodes involved. On March 5th, like all of you, I publicly discovered that I was the seemingly reason for the alert. Again, I have not observed any workplace violence activities during the past 12 months, and was indicated in the alert, to include during closed sessions. I encourage you to review the videos, the meeting minutes, the recorded tapes on file from October 19th, 2016 to the present time, or even call Pro Tem Mayor Carol Scott or any other sitting council person or mayor during this period. Needless to say, Attorney Richardson also attended closed sessions. I can assure you he is not bashful and never expressed even the slightest hint of any workplace
Serrato,
violence. I am reading a statement.
But I have to caution you on disclosing any attorney-client communications in closed session, and
Thank you,
also,
Mr. Mayor. I will respect that.
and
Thank you.
also not attributing remarks made by me or actions by me.
Thank you very much.
That I haven't heard of prior to this reading.
Thank you very much. Mr. Benton has attended closed sessions. Mr. Corbett has attended closed
Rich, get
sessions.
to your
They are free
comments.
to speak. As a former director of human resource, I have investigated countless irregular workplace-related issues. As was customary in the event an employee was accused of a serious incident, it was immediately communicated to the corporate office. Knowing no department can investigate itself, if an allegation was directed towards any member of my staff, to avoid the slightest conflict of interest or favoritism, I solicited independent counsel. I can assure you that everyone who has ever been accused of any violation was provided speedy and thorough investigation, and most importantly, due process. Why our administration failed to inform the council and waited a year concerning this serious matter demonstrates poor judgment. As a public official, I have come to realize and have peaceably accepted the anger directed towards me that you'll continue to see for simply questioning and expressing my opinions and publishing public records. The administration public actions by merely speculating that I could have gone to my car to get a gun, to me was misguided, amoral, and simply libelous. As a matter of interest, I do not own any weapon, and the last time I fired a rifle, it was in 1968, when I was employed by the U.S. Army. I am a public official, and being publicly accused of workplace violence without an independent investigation, and to be denied my right to due process in a public hearing in the presence of our citizens conflicts with state statute and customary practices for public officials. Whether or not this accusation was politically motivated, especially when the security alert was issued 2 weeks before an election, only you can decide. In closing, Mr. Mayor, transparency should not be selective, which unfortunately has been our history. How many examples would you like? Mr. Mayor, if this was a council meeting, I would file a motion requesting the council to hire an independent investigator to conduct a complete and thorough investigation of all the workplace violence incidents that have allegedly occurred from October 2016 to the present. This report should be provided to the council and to the taxpayers. Mr. Mayor, I would like to introduce this as a part of the record, please.
So be it. Aaron?
Maybe the problem I'm having with the whole thing is I don't see where this has actually hindered anybody's access or problems that we've had with the town. The employees feel safer. I don't see any harm in keeping everything in place because it's really no different than before. No one had access. Well, very few people had access, and those people no longer have access to those codes that aren't employed here. Yes, ma'am.
Simply because I am a council member, I am not allowed to speak with an employee?
No, you're allowed. It's just they need to know you're coming, and then you get escorted back to their office. And if they don't feel comfortable meeting with you by themselves in person, they're allowed to then state that and have a meeting in like the conference room, in the lobby, or something to that effect. And that's not just as a council member, that's with everybody. And with another person present. That'd be the reason they wouldn't want to do a
So
single face-to-face.
that applies to everybody in the town, not just council members?
It applies to everybody that comes through this town. And if they come to town hall and they want to see me in my office, I'm buzzed back there. I walk up, I get them, I take them back. I've had a few people that I will not meet in my office. I meet them in my lobby where Cindy's there watching as well, and we're on the camera.
Well, while we're on the subject, and maybe I'm out of order, but I would like to raise another issue with workplace violence. I would truly like to see a login at both of our reception desks with the date that somebody comes in, the time that they come in, their name, and the person they're here to see. I would like to see that enacted.
That's probably not an issue.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? John, we'll get Charlie.
Well, this whole thing started when Mr. Serrato tried to take away my right to make public comments. He became very angry, stood up, called me a liar, came down 2 feet away from me next to the podium and continued yelling. He was close enough that when he is angry like that, he spits, and I was being hit by the spittle. Mr. Serrato then stormed out, giving no reason for leaving. Mr. Serrato does not have any right to decide if an employee is in fear.
Well, Charlie, I have,
And I'm not
okay,
finished.
got to finish, Charlie.
Ms. Parker took immediate action to protect the employees. Anytime I came to town hall, even before even thinking about running for council, I was escorted. When I decided to run for council and was meeting with the department heads, I didn't just waltz in, I made appointments, and I was escorted. I don't see a problem with that. The idea that this is directed at Mr. Serrato, it doesn't mention him. It says all of us, everybody.
Well, Charlie, real quick, I was here the day that the department head, finance, walked in that podium and told her she was scared. She started crying, said she felt that Rich Serrato was going to go out to the car and get a gun. That was baseless and inflammatory and wrong for her to do that. And I've had multiple employees of this town say that to me. So on both sides have made mistakes here. All I'm trying to do right now is to correct the policy so it works for all of us, all the people in the town, and make the employees of this town feel safe. All I'm asking is to go with Richard's suggestion is to put anyone, take off the accident on October 17th.
I will not be taking that off this memo, but what we will do is we'll reinstitute a policy instead of a memo policy. So we'll make a document that's a policy that will state the security measures without any reason behind them or any, what your perceived bias. And I'll shoot it to Grady for him.
Okay.
But I'm not going to doctor someone else's memo about what they truly did receive. I mean, these are honest complaints. These are their feelings. Whether y'all feel they're validated or not, we have to take them into account.
Well-
But what we will do is we'll create a full policy, including the possible sign-up log, have it all sent in, have Grady review it, bring it back to y'all for further review and adjustment. But I honestly, the problem I'm having here is I honestly don't see where this has impacted anything. Because for us, the only addition were the cameras. Because the same thing applied before. We always escorted people back to people's offices.
It affected me once. It affected me once. I was coming in to see Bonnie and had to meet with Bonnie in the lobby. And while we were meeting, a taxpayer came in to put some medicine in that medicine. It was quite embarrassing to me.
Did she give you the reason why y'all met in the lobby?
No,
She did the same thing.
You can't legislate poor judgment.
All right, John, any questions?
No, I just agree that it is time to have a clear policy statement as to what the security measures are here inside Town Hall. And what Hiram has proposed sounds adequate and appropriate to me.
We discussed it on the 19th. That could give you enough time, Grady?
Mr. Benton, did you?
Oh, real quick, Rich. Is the 19th good enough, fair enough, Harmon?
I believe that's the way we're going to do it, is Hiram's going to take a stab at coming up with a policy that implements the purpose behind Ms. Parker's without being so specific, and then I'll review it. It depends on when Hiram has the opportunity to do that as to whether I can be ready on June 19th.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
you've been on the council 2 years. You have been blessed like I have. Have you observed or noticed any workplace violence?
No.
Mr. Corbett, you've been on the council for 1.5 years. You filled the vacancy, I believe, of Councilman DeVita. Have you noticed any workplace violence?
I have noticed workplace violence.
And when?
Hold on a second.
Rich?
In addition to the October 17th incident,
That was not
the other-
workplace violence.
it was
That was
my work-
illegal.
it was my
Rich,
work-
that was
my-
legal.
Rich.
My workplace, and I'm an employee. Then the other incident that's clear is occurred prior to my joining the council.
What was
And so-
that? Could you please explain that, Mr. Corbett?
Yeah, the public hearing for, I think it was who was going to be on the council when the council members were speaking. One of the issues that came up caused two of the council members to be shouting at each other, one of whom stood up and pounded the table in front of the other person.
Oh, who?
I prefer not to say,
Why?
All right.
because it has nothing to do with this. You asked me the incident, I said yes,
What do you
and
mean
I
it has
gave you the
nothing to do
two.
with workplace
Richard,
violence?
Richard,
You don't need the details.
Mark,
no, enough. We're going forward here.
let me explain the issue that Mr.
Excuse me,
Corbett-
Rich. You're out of order. They're going to have a draft given to us on this, and we're going to review it, hopefully on June 19th.
Why won't you allow Mr. Corbett to express the issue?
He did express his issue, and he said he
I
chose-
said what I
he
wanted
chose
to
not
say.
to do any more than that, Rich. Give him,
Can I respond for the record?
no,
Why not?
because I don't
Why
want
are
to.
you suppressing?
I'm not
free
suppressing,
speech?
Rich, we've talked this to death.
The reason is
Richard, you're out of order.
Mr. Benton questioned,
Richard?
Mr. Benton questioned Councilman Corbett when he applied for the council.
Turn his mic off.
When he applied for the council, Mr. Benton asked him if he would recuse himself
You are way out of order.
regarding the dredging of James Creek.
You-
Mr.
Richard,
Corbett
please stop.
refused to recuse
Richard,
You
please
already-
stop.
And Mr. Benton
Charlie.
slammed
I'm not gonna listen to this. There's no reason for listening to this at all.
Okay.
I would like to fill in the details that he left off.
No, right now, John, please, not today. It's not necessary.
Well, he left off Carol Scott out of it.
Well, I know, but
Okay.
I think you were right the way you handled it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
New business, fire fee rate increase discussion.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Yes, you may.
This is regarding the fire fee rate. First of all, according to the conditions set forth by Brunswick County, and I quote, "The budget and recommended fire fees shall have the approval of the department's town council prior to submission to the county." My first question is simple. Why was the recommended 45% increase by the fire committee sent to the council without any council knowledge or approval?
You want an answer?
Yes.
Because we had, one of the council meetings, we approved the mayor, Gary Larkin, Mr. Larkin, Hiram, and Richard, to attend the fire fee meeting. Since Bob Foster resigned, I took that position, and we voted on that as a town council several months ago, Lisa?
No. Why was this recommended
Richard, you asked the
45%
question.
increase sent
Richard,
to
you
the
asked the
county
question.
without
Let me
council?
answer it.
Answer it.
To be quiet. Several months ago, we had a town meeting, we voted on it, for 4 people to attend this meeting. You voted on it. So we went there, and then the county asked us, no, actually recommended the increase. Correct, Richard?
Yes.
And that's where it happened. It was originally 47% to make it revenue neutral to cover the $529,000 deficit in our fire budget.
That's
Is that correct, Richard?
That's correct.
All right. And then they came back and recommended 45% because, Richard?
That's not
Richard,
the
let me
question,
finish.
Mark. You're
So
avoiding the
45
question.
Then 45% came up because regarding the new additions in building and building permits, they felt that 45 would cover that shortfall. Correct, Richard?
That is correct.
This is the contract with the county. The budget and recommended fire fee shall have the approval of the department's town council prior to submission to the county.
All right, first of all, Rich,
The
that's after the
town
fact.
council.
Richard, that was after the fact. This is after the meeting. The county manager came up with that. So let's tell the truth.
I did.
That's not the truth. That happened after the meeting.
Why was the council ignored?
It's here today to talk about, Rich. Where's ignoring?
Mr.
If
Mayor, I need a break, please.
All right, adjourn for 5 minutes. Rich, you gotta be factual.